All right, folks, John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show. And today we're joined by Chip Baranowski, the Franchise Development Director over at Best Life Brands. And today we're going to talk about the ComForCare franchise. Chip, thank you so much for joining us, buddy.
Well, hey, John, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure talking with you.
You too, you too. Good deal. So I want to go into the franchising stuff, but in a minute. But for right now, let's talk a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing with before we get into that franchise business stuff, because as you know, I'm a big proponent of people doing business with people, not companies. And so let's get to know you for just a minute.
Yeah, John. So I've been in franchising for over 23 years in development roles and senior management roles, covering the gamut in the service industry. I actually have over 6 years in the home care space, so that's why ComForCare kind of really speaks to me, because I've been dealing with this with my aging parents in the past as well, and the struggles that they've gone through. So I started with Best Life Brands a little over a year and a half ago, launching one of their other brands, and came over here to ComForCare at the beginning of the year to help out, expand, and walking people through our mutual discovery process to see if this fits.
All right, can't wait to get into it. Now, before we jump into that stuff, how did you get into franchising? We've both been around franchising a long time, and we've talked before, but what led you to get into the wonderful world of franchise development?
Well, I spent prior to getting into franchising, I spent 12 years in the transportation industry with Ryder Truck Rental.
Okay.
And during my time with Ryder, my last 8 years was as a business development director, setting up their independent businesses across the state of Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. But it was a licensing agreement at that time.
Sure.
But it gave me my first, insertion into working with entrepreneurs and people that had started a business from scratch or even been part of a franchise group. And then when I decided to leave the transportation industry, I applied for a job for a young franchise company in Milwaukee where I grew up. And Greg took me on and trained me with no franchise background, and I got hooked. So 23 years later, I'm still in the industry, love what I do, love talking with candidates that are considering franchising as an opportunity or an alternative to the employment world, and walking them through the mutual discovery process. More importantly, enjoy seeing them once they've gotten into the business grow and establish and be successful. And I still have people that I placed in businesses over 20 years ago that are still running their businesses, whether it's in a recruiting business or a home care business or whatever it might be, and living that dream.
Very similar background to myself, my friend. I was working for a company in on the retail side and moved over to the franchise side of that organization with no experience. Got someone took me under their wing, and here I am almost 20 years later. And I'll tell you, folks, as you're listening in on this, what Chip just talked about there about building relationships and hearing from franchise owners from decades ago, it is true, right? We build relationships with folks and they last for lifetimes, right? I run into the same thing myself. Yeah. Now let's go into the history of ComForCare. Just walk us through, bring us up to speed, up to where you guys are at right now. What's been happening over the past few years? What's the growth looked like? Just walk us through the growth and history of the company.
Yeah, so Mark Armstrong actually founded ComForCare back in 1996. Prior to that, he was an accountant, so he came from a financial standpoint, but he was dealing with a lot of the struggles that most people do with their parents as they age and they need care in the home. So he started ComForCare in 1996, ran it independently for about 5 or 6 years before he decided to franchise it in 2001. And in the course of from 2001 to 2008, he took an organization with 0 franchise territories to over 100. And he still has a lot of the people that started with him almost 20 years ago working within our organization, which is really kind of exciting. And then in 2017, he sold his franchise to a private equity group called the Riverside Company. And Mark still sits on the board of directors. He did not exit completely. He's still very engaged with Best Life Brands and ComForCare. And then the whole thing with the Riverside Company when they purchased our company was to expand it and not just focus on ComForCare completely, but to add other brands in the senior space. So again, started with ComForCare. Shortly after that, they acquired their first franchise outside of ComForCare called Care Patrol, which is our placement service. They created Best Life Brands, which is our holding company, in 2019, and then went ahead and acquired Blue Moon Estate Sales,
Yep.
Which is an estate sale business. And then in 2021, we acquired and started our fourth franchise concept in the senior space called Boost Home Healthcare, which provides the skilled side of care. So, and we will be adding additional brands later on, hopefully this year and the following year, that really center around taking care of the seniors in their homes. So we basically can help them from the time they're discharged from a hospital due to an episode, and helping them with the clinical side, to people that are dealing with daily activities of life, which is ComForCare, where we help them deal with those items that they struggle with on a daily basis, and keep them in their homes. And then we can transition them if they can no longer stay at home. We can help them find a senior community that best fits them. And then we can help them and their family if we need to step in and help them get rid of stuff that mom or dad don't need anymore, or maybe that passed away. Help those families through an estate sale process, sell off the items that their loved ones left or no longer need anymore. So we kind of cover the whole transition of that senior in that block.
And it sounds like that Best Life Brands ecosystem, right, is what they've created there, being able to help those folks with all different aspects of their life at that stage. And we're going to talk about the industry here in just a minute too. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about the industry. Now, before we get into that though, I want to talk about the unique differentiators. We had talked before we started recording, so I'm really looking forward to this section. You said that you have a few specific unique differentiators that really, set you apart from the competition out there in the space. Can you kind of just give us an overview of what those things are on the unique differentiator side?
Definitely. So as I mentioned to you prior to us starting to record here, a lot of people come to me and ask me, Chip, what's going to set you apart from all the other home care businesses out there, whether independent or franchised? And I tell them a lot is, again, we're all doing the same thing, right? We're all taking care of individuals that are struggling with those daily activities of life. So there's no secret formula in regards to how to do that. But again, what we've done in 20 years is we've created 5 different programs, and we'll continue to add more later on, that we feel kind of separate us from our competition. So the first one is our Dementia Wise program. We started this over almost 20 years ago, partnering with a group called Dementia Wise. All our franchise owners go through certification programs through that to be able to care for individuals that are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's. And again, dealing with somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia is much different than dealing with somebody that just is dealing with those daily activities of life. So again, our owners, as well as they have staff, are trained to really help those individuals that are struggling with those. Our second is what we call Gateway, which is our fall risk assessment program. The number one reason how individuals get injured at home, elderly people or seniors, is due to some sort of fall. So when we come in and meet with the family and the loved ones, we're doing an assessment of their home and looking for those areas where a fall might be able to occur, and help them and put things in place to help control those things. So for instance, area rugs are the number one reason why seniors fall in their home. Because again, as we get older, we don't pick up our feet, we slide them. And if they catch them on the rug, they can take a tumble. So again, we will make recommendations, whether it's either removing the rug or maybe securing it down so they can't trip on it, to keep them safe. Okay. Wow. Our third program is what we call our remote connected care, which is our remote monitoring program, which we just launched here in 2023. We work with a great company that provides 4 remote monitoring systems to help a loved one when we're not there. So an example of one of those things would be a fall monitor. Okay, it's not a wearable because, again, a lot of seniors don't like wearing wearables. They forget about charging them, and again, they're no good if they're not charged. So what this device is actually sits in the home. It's mounted up against the wall at a certain height based on how high or how short the person is, and it's put in those high traffic areas where falls typically occur. So think about a bathroom or bedroom.
Right.
And then if the individual does fall, it identifies that and then sends out an alert. Either at maybe calls the neighbor or the loved one, somebody calls and checks in on that. Right. Another one that we provide is a virtual caregiver. So maybe a client can only deal with us, only can afford us 3 days a week. Well, on those off days when we're not there, we actually have a virtual caregiver that calls in off a tablet or on a phone call just to check in and see how Mr. and Mrs. Jones are doing. Right. And it's not the franchisor that's doing it. It's our vendor behind the scenes. So our franchisee doesn't need to staff with additional people in their homes or in their offices to call on those individuals. So those are 2 out of those 4 items that cover that connected care. Okay. Our fourth is what we call our on-site care model. So there's a lot of facilities out there that are housing seniors. They're providing meal programs, maintenance, but they're not providing caregivers on site. Okay. So what we're doing is we're teaching our owners how to go in and work with those individuals and bring caregivers on site. And we might run 3 shifts of caregivers in that facility, and you'll have a facility manager hired by ComForCare. So our caregivers aren't running around the city taking care of all those individuals. Actually, they're on site. And we might start out only working with 5 patients within this facility. And then as we grow and build those relationships with those individuals at the facility, we might gain where we might have 20 or 30 or 40 clients that we're helping in this 100-bed facility out there today. Okay.
Yep. That's good.
So those are some of the main differentiators that we have that kind of set us apart from our competition.
Those are 5 really good differentiators. Usually I ask that question, folks have 1, maybe 2, and you just went through a longer list of things. And I know there's other things too that set you guys apart as well. One of them being the team, the people, the support, that type of stuff. So I don't want to diminish what most folks would normally answer, which is, we've got a great team, we've got great support, and I know you guys have all of that stuff too. Right.
And the 5th program, which I forgot that just popped in my head, was our Joyful Music program.
Okay.
Again, we're going out and providing music programs in the local community. We might go into an assisted living center where we might not be working out of, but we put on free programs. We hire, either we have a caregiver that maybe is musical or one of our owners is, or we hire somebody locally to go out. And music has a very strong impact, especially for people that have Alzheimer's and dementia, to bring back memories of the past. So it's another way to get involved in that local community and build your reputation so people know who you are. And so when they do have a need, they can call in and check out and potentially utilize your services.
So you're saying you're going to come sing with the franchisees is what I heard.
Not me. You don't want to hear me sing. Maybe in the shower, but no.
I'm just kidding. Look, I know that if we kept going down through that questioning, I know there would be more items that you would bring up as well. So I encourage everybody to talk directly with Chip, let him run you through and give you the details of all the different programs. Those are definitely some unique differentiators. Now, when you look at the franchise owners themselves, the folks that would become your franchise partners, there's a lot of different types of folks out there, and there's franchises and businesses for all those folks. Who is the ideal franchise owner that you'd like to talk to? Like, who really, really gets it? Who does well in your business? Give us an idea who that person is.
Yeah, it's not necessarily somebody from the industry, right? The home healthcare industry whatsoever. So it's somebody with good, strong team builder and relationship builder, somebody with a passion for helping others. I do talk to people from time to time that come to me and I ask them why home care, and they're saying, well, it's a booming industry, it's recession resistant, and I can make a whole lot of freaking money in it. Well, that's not necessarily who I'm looking for. The money will come, but an individual that's only focused on the money, but really not focused on providing great care and doesn't understand when you're sitting there with a mother and an adult daughter that you're trying to get together on the same platform, that mom, you need somebody here to help you, and the daughter wants to make sure mom's taken care of safely. If all you're thinking about is the money and not about how to best suit that individual and care for them and bringing them together, you're not going to understand this. Okay.
So much
Yeah, we're looking for individuals that want to get involved in their local community. We're not hard salespeople, but we really want to get out there and educate and be part of our communities. Individuals that are willing to follow a system, which is basic any franchise out there. And then we're also looking for owners that want to be in the business in a full-time commitment. This isn't a semi-absentee business model where you can work your full-time job and do this, because again, we're caring for people's lives in the home. And then lastly is that they're well capitalized, because it's going to take some time to get this thing off the ground. It's not going to, you're not going to sign an agreement and be open the day after and servicing 100 clients right away. It's going to take a good year to get this off the ground, especially if you're in a state that requires a special license for home care.
No, that's a good idea there for folks to re-listen to that section right there, because there was a lot of nuggets in there on who you're looking for, who would do well, and to set the right expectations on some of that stuff also. It's, look, numbers are important. We got it. They either make sense or they don't, right? But the what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be doing every day, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute, and how you're going to be handling yourself and representing yourself in the community. Really focus in on that too. What are they going to be doing every day, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Speaking of that, let's get right into the day of the life of a typical franchise owner, right? Like, what are they going to be doing every day? There's a lot of different things to do when you first start a business. What does your
Mm-hmm.
average franchise owner do in an average day? I mean, there's always different things to be done. What's the
Mm-hmm.
average owner doing on an average day?
Well, it's going to be different very early on when you first begin, and then once you become an owner that's out there and built a successful team. So in the very beginning, the owner, we really want to focus on what their strengths. So if they're more the sales and marketing person, we want them to focus on that once they open up their office and getting out there and building those relationships.
Okay.
And then you'll hire an operations person to handle the day-to-day operations stuff, everything from scheduling and recruiting and billing and payroll. And then you'll also have a part-time nurse on per diem, because the nurses are going to go in and do all the assessments and create all the care plans. Okay. And that is a requirement at ComForCare. And then you'll have a part-time recruiter. Okay, but if you're not the sales and marketing person, you're going to switch roles. You're going to become the operations person in the beginning,
Okay.
And then you're going to hire that marketing person. And then as you grow your business and start adding individuals, you're going to start breaking out those roles. So from an operations standpoint, at one point as you grow, you're going to have a full-time scheduler that all they do is make sure all the schedules are filled, working with the caregivers, placing them in the right places. You'll have a full-time recruiter recruiting caregivers on an ongoing basis. You'll have somebody in admin. You'll have somebody in marketing. So a good organization, and when you're up and running and successful, you might have anywhere from 3 to 5 people in the office helping you run the day-to-day, and you're the owner overseeing and making sure all those positions are running and providing them with all the assets and building that culture and a great place to work.
I see what you're saying. So you're gonna the owner's gonna choose depending on what their strengths are, and then they're gonna hire that other. It sounds like there's a lot of important folks in the business, but 2 initial things that need to be done, right? And depending on what the owner's going, where they're gonna plug themselves into, will determine what they're gonna hire for first, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And we help them, guide them through that process. And again, if you're not an expert in it, like on the accounting side, don't try to fake it until you make it just to save a buck. Get the people on board that can help you do it. And maybe it's an outside accounting firm that can help you. But don't try to figure it out just to save a buck, because it's going to cost you a lot more money down the road.
Sure. And that's one of the reasons that you buy a franchise, so you don't have to keep getting it wrong till you get it right. So you listen to the advice of your partners in the business, right? I mean, I'm a big system and process guy, and look, I'm all about getting to know the people, but you can get to know the people if you're still not going to follow the systems and the processes, then, why are you actually looking at it, right?
Yeah.
What would you say the top misconception is, Chip? A lot of folks come to looking at this type of franchise with certain kind of preconceived notions. What would you say the 1 or 2 things are that just really stand out? Like, every time you're talking to somebody on the phone, this is what they think about your business. What is that misconception?
Well, that it's highly competitive and it's all about price, right? But it isn't. It's not about. There are a lot of competitors out there, but there are a lot of people that need care. right? And it's all about how an individual, it's every time from the first phone call that comes into the office with the distressed adult daughter or son, because the client's not calling in
Right.
for help. It's usually a family member, and they're stressed out because mom just had another fall or dad had another fall, and they're trying to figure it out. And how we take that person through a very detailed process, but also empathetically and compassionately, because they don't know what's going on and they need somebody to help. So it's delivering on that. There's a lot of competitors out there, but not a lot delivering on that care to the best abilities. Another misconception is that the government agencies are the way to go. You can't get private pay business. I can't tell you the number of people. There are a lot of people out there that don't have insurance that covers home care, but there's a lot of people out there that do have the funds, either them personally or through a family member that might assist them.
Right.
If they want to keep mom or dad in the home. Because, again, I have 4 siblings. It's me and 3 others. And, if we needed to provide care and my mom couldn't afford it, we'd probably chip in and help just to keep her in her home. So another conception is there's not a lot of business out there for private pay. There is. And the last big nomer out there is there's a shortage of caregivers. Again, I'm not saying that there's not employee shortages out there. Talk about any industry out there, John, it, being around franchising, and you go to these events, and every industry out there is saying there's shortage of staff.
Yep.
Again, we have processes in place to help you go out there and identify, recruit, hire, and train and retain these individuals. But it's a full-time effort. You can't stop recruiting because your business is always changing. But our owners that are out there have a full-time effort in recruiting are the ones that are constantly growing, and they're not turning away business because they're always recruiting for caregivers. And they don't just hire on skill. They hire for compassion, empathy, the right culture fit in the organization, because it's not about just going out there and checking off a bunch of boxes for the individuals that we're caring for. We're really trying, and our value or our mission statement is we want to help you live your best life possible. And we do that every day. Every day.
Finding and keeping the good people, right? It's the toughest part of any business, right? It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And it sounds like you guys have a real, system there in place for that, to say, hey, we know that it's a challenge to find good people and to keep them. And we've put this system in place to account for that, so that they're not just doing it on their own, trying to guess how to do it, but also on the other hand, it requires that effort. And I love your phrase of never stop recruiting, right? If you're constantly looking for good people, if you intend to grow your business, right? The third piece or second piece is, Chip, and I know that this resonates with a lot of folks out there that you talk with, is personal experience, right? Many folks have had this experience, and you're right. Mom's not calling in for help, right? She's not saying, hey, I need somebody to come and, do this or do that, or provide this service for me. It's going to be that distressed, son or daughter is who the franchise owner is going to be talking to. Right. And I've personally experienced myself, right? My wife's mother, I can tell you the whole story, but you already know it because I know you've heard it, is that it's difficult to find, the service to come in that's reliable and compassionate. And, we're 180 miles away. And so while we can help with some things, we aren't able to do the day to day, and we needed that help. And it was hard to find someone until we reached out and said, hey, can you help us do that, and able to find someone to come in and provide the services that she needed until it was time to move into the full-time home and then into the hospice and that type of stuff. So I get it. I know exactly what you're saying from a personal experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we created our Caregiver First program that we continue to tweak and modify, and that's why our owners we apply every year for the best place to work. Yep. There's a survey that goes out, and consistently year in and year out, we are voted #1 in the home care space, not only here in the U.S., but we also have some franchise owners internationally up in Canada. And Canada just got its 2nd year in a row of being the best place to work in home care. But it's all about teaching culture, building that passion for those individuals, and not just going out there and placing a caregiver anywhere, because not every caregiver is a good fit for every client. And really showing those caregivers that you really care for them and you want to take care of them and provide them with a great work environment.
Chip, we talked a lot about your business and the culture and the people. I want to talk just for a minute on why someone should even think about getting into the industry. We hear statistics and numbers, and at the end of the day, there has to be enough business. And we all know that there is, but what does the industry look like as a whole? Where's the industry headed? What kind of growth trajectory is the industry on?
Well, again, it's going to continue to grow as the baby boomer generation, which I hate to say, I'm a baby boomer. I just turned 60 last year. So my group is going to continue to age rapidly over the next 20, 30 plus years.
Mhm.
All right. So the need for care, and we're living so much longer than we ever did before. I mean, my dad, when I was growing up, he thought he wasn't going to live past 65 because every male in his family never lived it past that date. And my
Right.
dad ended up living past till he was 86 years old. So we're living much longer, and the demand for care is going to continue to increase. And again, facilities are pushing more and more services out of the facilities and into the home as well. And again, you can't offshore this to China. You can't, this is recession resistant and pandemic proof because, again, people are still going to need to care if there is a change in the economy. And again, who better, you want to take care of your loved ones, and you might give up a few things to make sure mom is comfortable in her later part of the years for whatever they did for us as we were growing up as kids as well.
You bring up a good point there. The industry is growing. People are not getting any younger. The population explosions that have happened over the past decades, right? That's all coming to fruition now. The
Mm-hmm.
multiple categories you mentioned, the baby boomers, and we've got another group coming right behind them. That's never ending. And the offshoring, right? This really can't be Amazon, right? You're not just gonna go
Mm-hmm.
to a website and get this service for mom and dad when it needs to be the level of care that they need in their home. Right. So that's just
Mm-hmm.
something you're just not going to offshore or outsource, that kind of thing. That's why your company exists. You are the outsource for the son and daughter that can't provide the service to mom and dad or the other friend or relative, right? You know,
Yep.
um, what are some hot areas there's a lot of folks out there right now considering getting into a business? What are some hot areas, if any, that make sense for you to be talking with those folks that are thinking about getting into this type of business?
When you say hot areas, are you talking parts of the country
Yeah,
or
what
what
parts of the
specifically?
country are there areas like, North Carolina, Florida, like where does it make the most sense? Like every area can be a good area, but a lot of our listeners are just thinking, well, geez, I wonder if my area makes sense for this, right?
Hmm. Well, again, there are areas of the country. Florida is a great example. Here, where I live in Arizona, we have a lot of retirees. They move here to get away from the nasty weather of the north, right?
Yeah.
So those areas are fine, but there are still people that can't move as well. So
Yep.
we still have, even though we've been around 20 years and we have over 250 territories in North America, we still have prime areas like in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. We still have territory in Georgia and Atlanta, as well as Raleigh, North Carolina. So again, even though we're a very mature industry, a franchisor, we still have great territories, but it's finding those right people that it fits. I mean, again, a lot of people, don't want to wait, 6 months to get up and running because, again, if there's a license requirement there. Some people don't like to manage large groups of people, and that's fine. But we just want to find the right people, not just anybody. And that's why we take them through our mutual discovery process and make sure it's a good thing and be very transparent and open on what the role is and give them an opportunity to talk to owners that are living and breathing this every day.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. The mutual due diligence process, which I know you and I both talk about all the time, is so key and important to finding that right fit. Let's walk through just the keystones, the milestones of your due diligence process. What are you looking to learn about folks? What are they looking to learn about you? And what does that, process look like for them when they say, "Hey, Chip, I'm interested." You start engaging with them. What does that look like for them to learn about you and for you to learn about them?
Yeah, so we started out with what we call our introductory webinar. It's a combination of getting to know them a little bit and their backgrounds, their why now, as I always say. Why
Mhm.
now? Why are you looking to do something at this point? Talk a little bit about the budget and where they're feeling they're going to get the funds to do this, personal living expenses, et cetera, their decision-making process and who else might be involved. And then lastly, really understand how will they know when they found the right fit? What boxes do they need to check off as they evaluate any opportunity? Not necessarily necessarily a brand like ComForCare, but individually, what's important to them.
Sure.
Then we give them a really good overview in about a 35, 40-minute webinar talking about ComForCare, the industry, what we do to support our owners. And by the end of the call, that first call, they have a really good foundation of understanding what the business is, and we're either moving forward onto the next step or we're parting ways. The next step is they fill out an application for consideration. We have a bunch of questions we'd like to find out from them. We give them the franchise disclosure document, and then we schedule an FDD review call. They have questions, and I always like to go through a series of sections in there and really dig into it with them to make sure they understand it. We also get territory maps out to them right away of the areas that are available in their market. If they're still interested after that, we get them into validation, where they're actually physically talking to people that are living and breathing this every single day. And I try to match based on backgrounds, areas of the country as well. And then they'll spend about a week, talking to owners, really digging into the day in the life, what are the opportunities ahead of them, startup, the relationship with a franchisor. And if they need more owners, maybe they only want 3 or 4 or 5, as many as they need to feel comfortable. And if they're still interested after that, we do what we call a virtual confirmation day. Some people call them discovery days or meet the team days. We do a confirmation day, and it's a 3-hour webinar that they can sit in their home, and we bring the rest of the team. So our brand president, our head of programming comes on, our HR department, and they get to dig into a lot more of the details, but also get to meet the team as well. And then they go their way and have a discussion, and we go our way and make sure that this is something we want to move forward with. Then agreements are prepared, finalized, and we move forward with the relationship. Or at any time, as I always tell people, John, and you do too, at any time during the process, if it's not a fit, just let us know.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Well, I've got thick skin, so just let me know. Let me know what the question is, right? Hey, when you talk about the process, let's say somebody went through that process, you're in agreement, they're in agreement, it makes sense, you've signed the agreement, the franchise fee's been paid. What does the process look like? How long does it take to get open? I know it varies because I already know that for sure because we've talked before, but give us an idea, just generally speaking, how long does it take to get open in the business?
Yeah, so we have 4 phases of training we take them through. The first is phase 1, which is all the pre-training. So it's everything from checklists to get open, like getting your EIN number, your business entity if it hasn't been formed yet, and then some online training. Then you'll work with our licensure department, our compliance department. If there is a license required in your state to get the license completed, we can't do it for you, but we guide them through that. And then once the application is filled out and sent into the state, it's a waiting period. When we know the license is going to be approved within about 30 days, we move them into phase 2, which is our virtual training, new owner training that covers all aspects of the business. Instead of flying them into Troy, Michigan, they're actually doing it in the comfort of their own home over a 2-week period of time with other franchisees that are going through training with our team, and they get a really in-depth look. Once we know the license is approved, we move them into phase 3, which is pre-opening, making sure everything's ready to go. Dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, so they can launch their business. Their business launches when their website goes live. They'll have 3 to 5 caregivers hired, and they're ready to start servicing clients. And then phase 4 is our first year in business. Our franchise business consultants, we have 5 of them that are assigned to owners. They're with you for that first year and beyond, but in the first year, they'll come out and visit you anywhere from 30 to 40 hours in that first year. Not all at once, but they're going to come out as needed to support you, and then they're also there to support you via phone, email, or text when you have any issues, as well as you have the whole system of franchise owners, because we do have a message board if you have questions that you need help with and you don't want to use your FBC, you might run and post something on the chat with all the owners and you'll get feedback from them. So if it's a licensing state, I usually tell people it could be anywhere from about 4 to 7 months before they're actually opened and servicing. It could be longer in some of those states where licensure might take a little bit longer.
No, that gives us a good idea. I really like your focus on the process, the different stages, man. As you know, like near and dear to my heart is those systems and processes. I truly believe, other than getting to know the people, and of course that's critically important.
Hmm.
The things behind the scenes of what you're doing with the franchise owner to help them get going. And I use it all the time. Start them out on third base, right? They don't have to get it right until they get it wrong. Right. That
Yep.
onboarding and training is important to those folks that are listening in. When we talk to franchise owners, one of the big questions that's out there is, how much does it cost, Chip? What's my investment look like? Can you
Hmm.
just and I always refer everyone to review the item 7 in the franchise disclosure documents, but just run us through an idea, generally speaking, what should someone expect to bring to the table to get this business started with ComForCare?
Yeah, great. So you have your initial franchise fee, of course, which buys you into the system, gets you a protected territory, gets you trained extensively, and support for the life of the agreement. Okay, for a standard territory, and I'm going to give you the price as we refiled. We will be refiling the end of this week,
Right,
so when this
right.
hits, it's probably going to be after we refile.
Yep.
So our franchise fee for ComForCare for a standard territory is $57,000.
Okay.
We do have a buy down model where you can buy in at a lower franchise fee with the same size territory at $29,500.
Okay.
Okay. If you buy in at a lower franchise fee, you're going to pay increased royalty fees for the term of the agreement. Okay. So that goes like this. Normally, for a standard territory, our royalty is 5%.
Hmm.
With the optional, which is a lower buy in, you're going to pay 6% for the first 4 years. And then years 5 through 10, you're going to pay 7%.
Okay.
So over the course, you're going to pay up to 2% more in royalties if you buy in at a lower franchise fee. And again, it's your option if you want to do it. I have several candidates that like that, and others that don't. Okay.
Yep.
In addition to your initial franchise fee, you need some startup capital. You got to get an office outside the home. You're going to have to get some business insurance, some computers, some furniture, et cetera. You're going to need about $30,000 to $40,000 in just general startup to get your office open, and
Okay.
then you need 12 months of working capital. 12 months of working capital, not 3 months, not
Right.
6 months, but
Right.
12 months because it's going to take some time. So, all in, including the franchise fee, startup capital, and working capital for 12 months, I tell people right around $250,000. The majority of that, John, is going to be setting in a business bank account or in a line of credit that they can draw from. In addition to that, as you know, John, being in franchising, how are you going to support your personal living expenses? If you have a spouse, great. If not, how are you going to cover your personal living expenses for that first 12 months as you're getting the business off the ground?
No, and that's fair. And I want to reemphasize that, folks, what Chip said there. One of the big things, because it will make a difference in these numbers as you're comparing different models out there, is most franchises are only going to disclose 3 months worth of working capital. And Chip emphasized it, but I want to point it out that his numbers are including 12 months of working capital, with the majority of that is going to sit in that business bank account or on that line of credit that they're going to draw on. So I want to make sure when you do talk with Chip, folks, have him show you the differences of that, because it's nice to hear that being upfront about it, Chip, and say, it's not
Hmm.
what we're required to disclose to you. This is what we think it'll actually really take. And there's a big difference there. And so, to be fair, make sure you're comparing apples to apples, right? That's what I always say, right?
Yeah, and again, the goal is hopefully you'll never have to use all the working capital, but better
Sure.
have it than never have it, right?
Right.
Because
Yep.
John, we both know, being in the industry for a while, the number one reason why small businesses fail today is they run out of capital.
That's right. Yep. It's better to need it than need it and not have it, right? So,
There you go. There you go.
what does the training look like? How long does it take? What does it entail? You kind of went through the 2 weeks virtual there. Is that it's obviously structured. Don't go into like the weeds on it here, but on the training, they're doing pre-training. Did I remember stage one is the pre-training? Then you're scheduling it. Can you just
Yeah.
recover that one little section there for me so I'm clear on that?
Yeah, so the pre-training, there'll be some online training that they'll do. We use a university called Relias. It's in the home care industry. A lot of the competitors use it. There'll be several assignments in there that they're going to go through, learn more about the industry, franchising in general. And then they'll move in, like I said, once we know that the license is going to be coming. We don't want to pray. If the license is going to take 6 months, I don't want to train them in month one.
Sure.
Because, again, they're going to have 5 months before their license comes through, and then they're going to forget. Okay. So we try to gauge it based on when their license is going to be approved, and then we take them through that online new owner training platform where they learn everything from marketing, operations, hiring, training, billables, relationship builders, talk about our unique programs and how to use those in your business, et cetera. So that's all covered in that 2 weeks of virtual training. And then once they get ready to open, it's making sure everything's done properly and they're ready to open. And then there's ongoing training as well. We do webinars on a regular basis talking about different aspects of our business, and they can go on to those live webinars, or we record them and they can go back in and review them later with their team.
All right, good deal. Thank you so much for that. And I want to give you the last minute or two here. Just kind of give us that rundown on why should someone think about franchising with ComForCare?
Yeah, again, we're a very well-established brand around a long time, with great processes and systems. Again, what I like about ComForCare is, again, the team behind supporting you. You see a lot of organizations where they have a lot of turnover, and after 20 years, we still have people that have been here since the very beginning. And seeing the transition 20 years ago to where home care was and where it is today. And we're constantly innovating, and we're not staying the course. We're always looking for better ways of doing things and helping our owners grow. And again, it's all about the relationship. It's part of you understanding what we do, and we understand in that culture needs to be a really good fit. And that's why we talk about it a lot when we're talking with candidates that are going through this. If you're not a culture fit, it's not a fit for either one of us. I don't care how great the business is, but if the culture fit isn't there for both of us, so it's really making sure that you fit our culture and we fit yours, and we have that goal in mind and go moving forward. So it's really, as you're evaluating opportunities, don't just look at it from the amount of the franchise fee, right? Because I get people that, well, your franchise fee is higher. Why is that? And again, there's reasons for it. But again, is it all about the franchise fee, or is it about the company that's going to help you, train you, provide you the processes, systems, and then be there to help you grow into the next level and be a multi-unit owner if that's what you want to do, or look at buying one of our sister brands to complement what you're already doing. And then again, you're part of Best Life Brands and the owners that we have, not only with ComForCare, but you also have with the other brands that we have, that if we open a ComForCare in your area and we have a Care Patrol and a Boost and a Best Life and a Blue Moon Estate Sales, you already have immediate relationships that can help you foster and grow your business as well.
I love ecosystems, my friend. So, well, there you have it, folks. Chip Baranowski, Franchise Development Director over at Best Life Brands. Today we talked about ComForCare. Make sure to reach out to Chip, and if you do listen into this episode, let him know that you heard about him or heard the radio show interview on Franchise Radio Show. Chip, thank you so much, buddy, for jumping in. Why don't you share your contact information with folks, and we'll make sure we post it here right underneath of the audio as well.
Yeah, so you can contact me at C Baranowski, BARANOWSKI, at ComForCare.com. You can go to our website at ComForCare.com/franchising, and you can fill out a request form there. Or you can call or text me at 248-781-8855. Again, 248-781-8855. If you just have a question or two and just wondered about availability or just had a general question about home care in general, just feel free to reach out to me as well.
All right, buddy. We'll make sure to include that contact information on there. As always, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, John.